Okay, so we've disconnected the 5K cabling, connected the 8K. Little red light is on.
Yeah, you already did a mil. You get a mil from it, so you would get 2.5.
Okay, so the green light is now on, showing that it's hooked up and tracking. I see the test pattern. Okay, so here's my approach. The headset by default boots up with a starry sky and the Pimax logo in the background. I don't find that particularly helpful for adjustments. So I have mine substitute a test pattern. So here in the Pimax runtime resource folder, this is the image that you see by default. And this is the test pattern that I've replaced it with. So the idea is that right now, that's what's showing in the headset. It's I don't know what the distance is that it's rendering it at. It's not like it's on the plane of the display, certainly. So I don't know if there must be some like resolution scaling and stuff going on. But I can already see with the old school facial interface, it is clearer, in my opinion, no doubt, than when I'm wearing the comfort kit. And I think it is something just physically about the way that it pushes off and the angle that it presents the panels at. Because even if I just pressed the comfort kit against my face, I could never find the position that looked clear. But I think this is just fundamentally better. So let's go through the steps of adjusting the vertical offset and the IPD and stuff as I understand them. So we go into PiTool. And it's interesting. It is tracking and it's working, but when I run PiTool, it loses the tracking, and I have to do the little dance of hiding the headset and getting it to come back. I don't see that behavior on the 5K plus, but I do see that pretty consistently on the 8K. Okay, so if we go into settings, let's just make sure everything is copacetic now that it's the 8K. It's doing 75. It's in the native mode. Right now I have the IPD offset at 0, and these were the values that I was using. Just going to take a snip of this real quick so that I don't lose what I was happy with from the 5K.
No, you won't. You're... No, Jane. Yeah, it's like... Because it's new, it's gonna be ridiculously overpriced, and it's not gonna be worth actually.
So I have a habit of saving out screenshots of configuration screens and stuff like that, just so I can reference back the way things were.
No.
Okay, so I'm going to set these to 0. And I think these values also do change depending on how it's, the orientation of it, whether you're looking flat, up or down through the lenses. Um, so the way I understand it is if you click on either one of these, you can then use the arrow keys to adjust it while it's on your face without looking at the interface. But what you do is you put the headset on, close your left eye or your less dominant eye, so you're just looking through with your dominant eye, and set the vertical adjustment so that the green line in the test pattern is as flat as possible, edge to edge. If it's above or below the center point, it'll bow a little bit up or down. So you want to find the place where it's as flat and horizontal as possible. So we'll do that first. It's also critical that you do this with it in the position that you think is providing you the best optical clarity through the lenses. So finding the place on your face where it's the most clear is absolutely critical. And I find that the Vive Deluxe Audio Kit really is pretty comfortable and adjustable.
I can't even do it.
Okay, so that's really interesting. I'm finding that 0 on the right adjustment is correct. So now, if you find whatever value, if it's the default or if it's above or below, you do the same thing, except you don't close either eye, but you want to find the place where the left one is the most comfortable. And as you move it up and down, on the test pattern, you'll see it pop. And if it's close, your brain does a pretty good job of just sort of adjusting and making it seem like it's okay, but there is strain on your optic sensibility. And what I find is that there is. So that, I think, is the correct value. Is that also 0? Yep. So 0, 0. With this headset and the way the facial interface is, that does seem to be the most clear and correct. And the IPD physical adjustment is cranked all the way down, which is a higher, when it, like the SteamVR shows you what it thinks the value is, it's higher than the 5K plus. The 5K plus gets below 60, but for this 8K, it's always above 60. The lowest value I see it tell me 60.3. So I know my physical IPD is like 58. And if you do the software adjustment down to 58, that feels, I can sense that it's uncomfortable. And I'm not convinced that this test pattern is the best way to adjust the IPD. I think it's better to have something in the distance in like a simulation. So we'll look at this again once we get it in iRacing. But I think I'll leave it at 0 for now.
Well, it might be because you're used to going to
Okay, so this is interesting because in my previous experiments, I've been using the IPD and left and right vertical offset values from the 5K. My experience switching from one 5K to another 5K is that the values can be different, even if I'm wearing it in a similar position and I'm the same. It seems like there might be headset to headset differences. But what we just did right now shows me that, at least for today, 0 values for all 3 of these seem like they're the most comfortable. So that's not the way I had been doing it before or evaluating it before. And this might have a critical difference in terms of how the presentation feels and sense of presence and stuff. So let's go ahead and load into SteamVR.
I got full armor, ender pearl.
And I want to set the SteamVR resolution so that it's consistent with the way that I have been running the 8K or the 5K. Yeah.
Ooh, nice. And now Patrick has strength. Run.
Okay, so the same percentage, obviously, with the resolution difference in the panels is way too high.
My only hope is to get him into the void.
So I want to get something that's close to 4268.
Patrick kind of low on health.
So
Yeah.
actually, I'm just going to run it at what SteamVR thinks is 100%. So this is quite a bit higher resolution for the 8K than we had been running on the 5K. And that we should be able to afford that as far as system resources in terms of running only 75 hertz instead of 90 hertz. So let's test this to begin with.
And of course the pearl lands half a second after I got it. No, we liked it! I liked it.
Don't need all of
Loading
these applications
DRE.
and stuff, especially if I'm not streaming, but just for the consistency of the way my system runs, I think it's better to run everything consistently. Okay, so we were just doing radical. Let's just jump into a practice session.
Sharp 5 diamond swords and feather armor and no 5 dragons, you said. Well, it sucks to be Patrick.
Hi there Chris, let's get first place and win. Green flag at Imola GP. Looking at 3 driving, with an average iRating of 1702. 1 hours 26 minutes left of practice.
Oh god, I can't move.
Okay, so with this version of the facial interface, I do feel like I can get the right eye to focus pretty darn clearly. And if I do the same maneuver as far as like pushing it over to the right, it goes out, or pushing it over to the left, it goes out of the ideal focus. So I do think that I'm getting as pretty close to optimal optics resolution with this orientation as opposed to the way that it sat with the comfort kit. Okay, but there are a few things that I've learned that we have to go into the settings for. We go into options, graphics, and change it so that both of the dynamic LED values are currently off, which is good. And it thinks that it's hitting 75 hertz.
Well, I bet you nothing of it. Clearly said no on it. I thought I was allowed to so damn and stuff.
Pit limiter on.
And we're not quite making frame rate. It's only 72, 71. So we might have to back out and lower the render resolution a little bit. Yeah, we're not quite making... Seems like I'm right on the cusp of frame rate. Okay, so let's drop out, put it back at So 5008 by 3160 is a little too high for my computer, apparently. The previous value. Hello, Lord Raymax. I hate the way it snaps to the default.
Yeah. The beast. Watch me.
Okay, so this is pretty close. It's a little bit less in the horizontal and just 2 pixels or 4 pixels more vertically. So that's pretty close, 78%.
What makes them so great?
Go back into the same session.
Hey, my armor is damaged. My armor is damaged. Oh yeah, I have 3 swords. Just regular. Also, be careful. My skeleton does have a swing bow.
Okay, so we're making frame rate again, or 75 hertz.
Limiter engaged.
Yeah, I think I have a pretty decent sword. It's only like sharper.
But like, okay, what I'm saying is that these distance markers, it's like I can now see the very furthest one, the 50. But it feels like it should be readable further out, but it's like the actual iRacing rendering is not putting the texture on, or it's in a lower map or something. And I think that's part of why I reject this, is it seems like there is clarity, or there should be resolution on objects further in the distance than you can see in the 5K. But the fact that they're not being rendered in any legible way makes me sort of feel like it's not clear. Does that make sense? Well, that's kind of what I feel, is like we might be seeing just limitations in the rendering of the simulation where it's revealing shortcomings with the 8KX that you don't expect to see that clarity on the 5K, but you could see it on the 8K, but it's not rendering that far out, and so it's seeming like it's a shortcoming. If that makes, if I'm explaining it clearly. I mean, I do have to say that, especially with this position on my face, the clarity of the objects and the lack of really any screen door effect is pretty impressive, especially looking around the cockpit and stuff close to me. But the majority of my time in iRacing is spent gazing out at mid to far distance objects. And I guess maybe it really is the lack of pixel structure makes it seem like it should be in sharp focus, but it's not quite. Or the objects, the screen, like
Faulkner at
the
exit. You're
the
clear.
signs aren't legible yet, so you think it's out of focus, but it's not a focus issue. Well, I don't want to like, make any. I don't want to say it's bad. Let me just do a little. I mean, it also just could be the kind of thing where it takes a little bit of an adjustment period or whatever. But I don't want to like, pump up something.
Yeah, I gotta tell my.
I mean, you know me. I don't want to be dishonest or say it's great when I don't really like it. I want to like it. Um, and I guess what I'm feeling right now compared to my prior experiments and stuff is more positive. I think my sense of, overlapping stereoscopic depth perception and presence and stuff is better than it was before. And I think that's probably because I was running with the different vertical offsets and like trying to look through at a different angle. So this is a better, I would say so far in the tests I've done, this is the best
Improving. New personal best lap time.
experience presence
1 minute 44.477.
presentation that I've felt. But it's hard for me to say I want to drive in this more than the 5K. I do. The computer says we are totally making 75 hertz frame rate, and I can totally tell the difference between this and the 90 hertz, especially here. Sorry for anybody I'm messing up, but if I get it to do a quick, yeah, I mean it's smooth in terms of the rotation, but I can definitely tell the difference between 75 and 90 hertz. And there is something about the colors that are just, it's more sort of desaturated, I want to say. There are options in PiTool to kind of adjust that and stuff, but I kind of feel like if it was possible to calibrate it to be correct, they would certainly do that, at the factory or out of the box.
James, that thing's really good.
So I guess what I'm finding is, like, as I'm driving, I'm sort of looking off into the distance and missing my braking points.
They say you cut the course.
It's like the texture in like the trees and stuff in the mid to far distance is just kind of flat. And maybe that's also part of what's putting me off. When they're closer, you can see the definition. Well, I'm not sure it's a sad day. And maybe what I should do is just run a few races with it and just get myself to try and experiment with it more. And I guess like anything in life, there's going to be trade-offs. Without a doubt, the panel resolution is higher. I mean, that's undeniable. You can see the resolution improvement. But the trade-offs as far as 75 versus 90 hertz, color saturation, and to some degree, just the, I guess maybe my hunch is that we actually are just seeing more clearly the actual render distance, and maybe doing comparisons from like what I'm seeing versus like what it looks like on the desktop without VR might also be interesting, just to sort of see if there is like render depth difference.
4.2 up to your fastest time.
Because it's not, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not bad. And if I hadn't been running with the 5K for a year and a half or 2 years or whatever it's been, I might just think this is spectacular. And I think if I was coming from another headset that did not have the field of view, I'd probably also be like really impressed as far as like, oh my God, I can see side to side like crazy.
And 2 chest plates, 1 chest.
And yeah, like when I take it off my head right now, I'm feeling okay. And I think that probably is like the vertical offset differential. In previous experiments, I would feel like, there's that momentary adjustment where your eyes and optical system sort of readjust to the real world. But it's encouraging that at least the way it's running right now, yeah, I think that is better than I've been feeling before as far as just physical comfort. And actually, let's take a quick look at IPD stuff.
Well, that's what I do.
Excuse me. Thank you. Okay, so it's a little frustrating because anytime you make an adjustment, it throws up the little display window showing what the value is. So I kind of end up looking a little up and down at distant objects to...
Are you actually good or just saying that it's still better?
That is definitely too low. That's where it's starting to get too high. So numerically, somewhere between 61 and 58.
Well, no. No, I got to choose the last. I know it. But I already chose it. I didn't say anything.
I would say this is the best. I think that's probably 0. Yeah, it's 0. Interesting. Okay, let's run another lap or so. Headphones on. Try and make this experience as consistent as possible.
Limiter. We're down in position number 5 currently.
So I'm used to seeing like aliasing on those textures and stuff on the hill, and that's not happening at all. Certainly an improvement. What did you say your IPD is, Cradle? So you should be like smack dab in the normal average range. So I am still seeing a little flickering and aliasing in the grandstand detail, but I think I am actually running at like the 4x for the anti-aliasing. And maybe if we're only doing 75 hertz, I can afford to bump that up to 8x. Oops. Whee! So I don't want to be discouraging, and I would say that like this driving experience is significantly better than my previous experiments. I'm not feeling like, oh, it's just ever so slightly out of focus, and if I move it to the side, it gets better. So I think I am probably enjoying, the best optical focus I can at this point.
Great, new quickest lap time, 1 minute 41.251.
And looking into the distance and seeing like, the texture in the fencing and stuff like that. I mean, it definitely resolves more than you see with the 5K Plus.
Excellent, we're in position number 3.
V3 hype.
This mid chest give you nothing.
So I am kind of conflicted. It's like on the one hand, it does look good and the resolution is an improvement, but I kind of feel like what it's revealing isn't helping in the simulation as much. And I do detect a difference between 75 and 90 hertz, and I do see a color quality differential that we might be able to adjust. I don't know whether. Let me switch back. Let's do a quick revert to the 5K Plus and take a look at that. Same track, same conditions. Typically, I would say no. Frame rate is not more important. And when I first had my 5K plus, I was voluntarily running it at 75 hertz because my system at the time could only really handle that at the wide field of view. But there have been, I've upgraded GPU, and PiTool has certainly improved in performance. So that these days with the 5K plus, I can do 90 hertz in pretty much every series and condition I run. So let's switch back. Be right back.
No lock, but they're in chest. Go, let's go.
Okay, booting back up.
Here at us, Fretzer.
Oh, come on.
Oh god, James is turning into rhythm. And of course, that's when this could be like half my health and half is. No, the fireball. No, we did like a billion. No, that was extra.
Okay, so let's just set it back to the way that I had it.
Yes,
That's interesting. Was it 3.5 negative 2? Interesting. That's changed.
Yes.
2.5 and 2 and 0 on IPD.
Yeah, because you're like 20 times better than me at like PvP. No, I took her ability off it. I hate.
Okay, let's reset SteamVR.
Ready.
I miss being able to use the arrow keys to adjust this. Okay, so this is the closest I can get. It's 158%.
Loading DRE.
No, everyone. What? What the heck is on? No, it just shoots me across the map. I guess it's not that as cool. James, stop. For him, I'd be doing a book. Okay, Patrick, stop. To your right. No, it doesn't. I don't see it.
Hello Chris, let's get first place and win. Started a new session. Looking at 6 racing, with an average iRating of 1753. 1 hours 31 minutes left of practice. Pit limiter.
Okay, so having just seen the other one, I can definitely see that the resolution here is lower and it is not as revealing. But I can't get away from the sense that there's a better presence experience. I feel like I'm in this space and there's like a different sense of separation with the 8K. It could be the colors. The colors are definitely, I guess, and it's weird. It's hard to say that they're better. I guess with anything like that, it's subjective, and it could just be that this is what I'm more used to. And given time, maybe the range and stuff on the 8K would feel more natural. But somehow, I don't know. Right now, I feel like I am here in the race car on the track, and I don't feel that way necessarily with the 8K. And I don't know if it's just the resolution, the texture to the image, or the frame rate being slightly lower, or if there is somehow more input lag in the tracking. I don't know. But I guess if I had to make a choice, I would choose to drive with this rather than the 8K. It's comfortable. I see everything as clearly as I need to. Looking off in the distance, yeah, there's some shimmering in the trees and stuff above the grandstands. I am obviously seeing resolution limitations in the panel, but somehow I guess it feels more forgivable if I can't see that
well done.
300 until now.
59.603.
But I could see the box further out. I think with the 8K, I see the box further out, and I don't understand why I can't read it. But with this, it's more, I don't know, forgivable?
Outstanding, Chris. Position 7 now.
Say goodbye to yourself.
Let's just check frame rate. Yeah, we're totally solid 90 hertz.
Your P8 currently.
I guess if there was like a PiTool update that would support 90 hertz on the 8K, that would be certainly something to hope for. Yeah, and that's what I don't understand, because I was like running the same. Well, when the first test we did, we ran it at 100% in SteamVR, which was a significant resolution bump, and that's when we were not making frame rate. But when I set it down so that the resolution was
21
comparable to
seconds
what
to
we're
the
running
pit
now,
stall.
then it wasn't having any problems making 70 hertz or 75 hertz. But like here, looking at the distance, I know there's a car up there, and I can even see like my little lollipop guy. But the fact that I can't see them clearly is okay. It's like I accept that
15
that's the
SEC.
resolution that I can see in the simulation. As I drive towards them, that car is suddenly,
10 SEC.
not suddenly, but it's much clearer. I can tell what it is. I can see the brake lights. I can see my little guy's feet. I can see the lollipop clearly.
Box now.
I don't know, something about, and maybe it is just like a magic combination of the texture of the image with the panel resolution and the way that iRacing renders it, that this is a pretty good compromise in terms of both of those dimensions. Whereas the 8K resolves it more clearly, but the rendering engine isn't giving the additional detail, so it feels like there's a mismatch, maybe? And again, taking it off, zero discomfort or adjustment feel, which is better now with the 8K, I have to say.
James gonna make it get little. Oh, hold on now. James gonna make it get little.
Interesting.
James gonna make it get little. No, don't.
You're welcome, man. Part of me is tempted to swap back and like actually just, push myself to experiment and use the 8KX more. But the other part of me feels like in just this test right here, I feel more comfortable, or I enjoy the presentation of the 5K, and that seems obvious to me. So
James, are you literally like trying to make my efforts go in vain?
Yeah, it's weird. I wanted to love the 8K and, just have that be an obvious improvement.
For a much smaller threat. Or if I don't, then we definitely lose.
Yeah. So counterintuitive. I mean, it seems like panel increase should be good. Same field of view, same form factor as far as the way it sits and the general size, weight, and other physical dimensions. but the actual and maybe it's different for different titles and stuff like that. But my iRacing specific feeling is that I get a better experience out of the 5K. And it's crazy because let's take a look. So they're saying the 5K series is starting at $449. Is that for like the artisan or something? Yeah, so the artisan is $449, but it's a slightly lower field of view. The XR has better. It's an OLED panel, so it should have even better colors than the 5K Plus, but I think it only runs at 80 hertz. So the 5K Plus running at 90 or 144 hertz for $600, that seems like a really good deal. $600 headset, 200-degree field of view. If you have the computer to run it, it'll go as fast as 144 hertz.
Said, that is not even close.
Versus 8K Plus for $849, but limited to 75.
Said, more than double.
Useless.
But this is without the audio strap, which I honestly don't think the audio strap that they provide is worth using. It did not fit comfortably on my head, nor did I think the audio quality was very good. So I would choose to use it with the deluxe audio strap anyway.
Kreidel said, oh, that's the plus. Kreidel said, did you try that one?
Oh no, this is the 8K Plus. No, I'm sorry. Why am I looking at the 8K Plus? 8KX. Sorry. Terribly sorry. So yeah, that 8KX is $1,300.
No.
So the dual engine mode thing is weird. You can either run it in the native resolution, or you can run it like at the same resolution as the 5K, and it upscales. I really didn't experiment very much with that, but just philosophically, I don't like the idea. But maybe running at the higher frame rate, upscaled, removing the screen door, but it seems like any of that software scaling is going to produce artifacts and stuff that I'm not going to be happy about. So I would rather run at the native resolution, I think. The comfort kit, in my opinion, is maybe not as good as the old one.
Oh my god. Okay, well next time I'm next to you on this.
So I'm having a hard time.
Kreidel said, so what is the difference between the 8KX and the 8K Plus?
The 8KX runs at the native resolution in the 75 hertz mode. So it's running, full panel resolution. The 8K Plus is only doing the upscaled. So the panels are the same resolution, I think, but it doesn't have a mode where it runs at the native resolution. It always upscales. So it's like running the 8KX in the, scaling mode. So it'll do a higher frame rate, but it's scaling the input.
So I wouldn't care that much. But
So yeah, the same resolution, but it only takes the scaled input. So my understanding is that it's like if you were running in the upscale mode, that's the 8K plus, but the 8KX has the native mode where it's actually running full resolution. So the 8K plus and the upscale mode takes a smaller input but scales it up to the resolution of the panel. And somehow when you do it that way, it's able to do it at a higher frame rate. Well, I think I'm going to jump back in and do the next radical race.
I have a boat. Of course.